All right. Good morning, Internet. Today is the June 23rd meeting of the IPython/Jupyter project. And we have an agenda. The first item on the agenda is to introduce Oberon Lopez. Oberon, are you here? And I think you're muted. So before you say hi, please unmute yourself.
Hi there, I'm Oberon. I just started working at Cal Poly with Bryan Granger, and I've started working on some script usability and getting it integrated with IPython.
Yeah, it's echoing.
There's an echo, so he has to nod.
Yeah, right.
Is someone talking, or is like everybody muted?
Everyone's muted.
Somebody has muted.
Yeah, everybody's muted.
Yeah. Was I generating a lot of echo?
We need to get our.
Was I generating a lot of echo? Let me go get headphones.
Yeah, we need to get our headphones out of LDL so we can do the multi-person stuff without speakers and speakers just like yes, headphones work about half the time. Oh, I don't think we've ever had any trouble. Bryan has no. Okay, yeah. Bryan's headphones managed to echo, which is a mystery, technological marvel. But other than that, yeah. Okay.
I think the echo is actually in the copper cables. You know, the sound is doing back and forth.
They're the wrong length. You've got a standing wave going on inside the cable. No. Okay, first thing to look at is the sci-fi stuff. Yes. So first, I know everyone's probably bored of this by now, but I want to do a final check of the room arrangements because we thought we had it all sorted, and it turned out that we didn't. So I'm now paranoid about it. So we have rooms booked. Bryan, you have booked 3 rooms, which covers you, your family, John, and all the Cal Poly students that are going, right?
I can respond for him, yes. It looks like he's not connected.
Okay. Okay. We might double check that because I think it might have been miscommunication with.
Yeah, we should definitely ask Bryan.
We got confused with last time. So Min has booked a room for Min and Stefan, with the exception of the first night where Stefan has booked for himself. I have booked a room now for Matthias and I. Jess has a room for herself and Carissa, and Kyle, you have a room just for you now. Is that everyone? Are there any room bookings that I don't know about? Is there anyone going that I have left off that?
Well, here's Bryan. Bryan, did you have a room for all the students that are going? Me, yourself, and your kids, right?
Yes, that is precisely, yes, that is correct.
Awesome.
Great.
So we can move on things that don't concern the rest of the internet.
That's most of what we've talked about. Yeah.
People want to know.
All right.
So we also have Will who joined, who is the author of Atom Hydrogen plugin. Hi.
Hi, Will. Hello again.
How's it going? I will.
Hey, Will.
So other SciPy stuff, sticker designs, someone has noted finalized today. It's Bryan.
Yeah, so I think the best plan is for us to, because Leah already has that die-cut version on Sticker Mule, that we should order a bunch of those, and then Cameron is going to design a second one finishing today, either a smaller size, like the small 1x1 IPython, or a rectangular one, and he'll have those. Actually, Cameron, do you have any updates on that?
So as I was designing it yesterday, I tried to get a quote for them and a proof just to see what it would look like, but you can't actually see a proof until you actually order the order. So do we want a small square 2x2 one, just like the IPython little square, or would we want the longer rectangular one? That's rounded edges.
Was 1x1, by the way.
It was 1x1? Okay, cool.
I mean, that's the size that we got for the IPython ones. That's the kind of.
So this is. I'm holding a telephone. This is. Can I? Is that me? Yeah. I'm holding. This is a phone, and that's a one. That's a 1x1.
Okay, so I guess the 1x1 is what we'll go with. That looks pretty good.
Yeah, it's a really good size. It's a really good size.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. So we'll go with that one. So we should have that ordered by the end of today.
Okay, do you need, you'll need my help in doing the ordering because I have the credit card.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But I also this week did the website mockups. You guys can see that on GitHub or in the Gitter. So.
I think I have a discount code for you printing, which is where we've got the little square ones printed in the past.
Okay.
So we can coordinate with that offline if work out where we want to get those printed. Is it for the stickers that Leah's already got? Are we going to ask Leah to get those printed or print them ourselves?
I think she, because they save the die cutting, I think she may need to do that unless she can somehow call them and give us permission to use the die cutting, that particular die cut as well.
Okay. So
how many total stickers do we want of each design?
Last order we got. So in the like IPython marketing repo, I have a file where I'm recording what we've ordered when. The last order I think we had like 6,000 of the small square ones and maybe 2,000 of the big rectangular ones. And I think we're already more than halfway through at least the small ones.
What would you recommend then for this order?
I would go for maybe 2,000 or 3,000 of the bigger design, and I mean with the small square ones, the economies of scale are insane. Like it's $200 to get 250 printed or something, and then like for an extra $40 you can get 4 times that much printed. Like it's basically all setup costs. So the more we can print in, the more we're happy to print in one go, the better. And yeah, I think we've got rid of 6,000 of the IPython ones, or the best part of 6,000, fairly easily. And hopefully the name Jupyter will be around for a while. So I would print at least 6,000 of the small square ones.
Okay, good. I love being able to make these decisions based on data. So thank you for keeping those numbers around. I hadn't thought of that, but thank you, Thomas, for actually recording those numbers. Go figure. It's a lot easier to make these decisions based on actually knowing the numbers. Appreciate that.
Yeah. Actually, I'm doing the same. When we open issues in the Jupyter design repo, I'm recording what we order there.
Yeah, good.
Who we're ordering it from. So yeah.
Yeah. So much better than guesswork. Go figure.
Yes. So the 2 T-shirt designs have been ordered, and they will show up at the AT&T Center no later than Monday, the first day of the tutorials. For the size ratios, I actually asked the SciPy organizers. Jill sent me the precise size ratios for both men and women, and so I just followed that. And she also sent the ratio of men and women at SciPy, so I followed that ratio. I think in future orders, the only thing we'll want to modify is the men to women ratio based on what we're ordering for.
Okay. think we're also at sci-fi stuff. Okay, so I just put there's a list on the hackpad of like the things I'm aware of that we are involved with. I see Brian's just adding. Oh yes, we have a table. I forgot about that.
I'll look up the times.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So.
Okay. One thing that I want you all of those of you who are going to be going to be on the lookout for is that keep in mind we are also all of you are in scouting mode. Remember the project is hiring. The project is hiring engineers, software engineers at Cal Poly. The project is hiring postdocs at Berkeley. The project is hiring a project manager at Berkeley. I think I said postdocs at Berkeley. The project is going to be hiring a web developer. The project is hiring a tech writer. So be on the lookout for potentially interested folks. We'll be putting some of the job ads have been out for a while. Some of the job ads will be going up in the next week or two. But even in the meantime, keep that in mind. Tell that to people. If you find people who are potentially good candidates, talk to them with that in mind and send them our way.
Great.
Yeah, so the first technical thing we have is Sylvan has a proposal to add a com list request so that front ends can ask the kernel what comms are currently registered. And this comes up when for restoring widgets on the page. There are issues with not knowing if your com counterpart exists or not. And it's the current mechanism of just try to open the com and it'll die later is not really working that well.
So that's how we're doing it now, is it? Try and fail?
Yeah, and with the async stuff, try and fail is annoying. Try and wait. So it's a new message type. It's a simple request reply. It's a very simple addition, but it means bumping the message spec, adding minor revision, new message, which makes it kind of a big deal, though it's not huge. Yeah, and I just wanted to get people's input on the adding a message and all that stuff.
My own thought is that as we move the widgets and COM layers to more complicated dashboards and so on, it will be very important to have a quick way of getting all the COMs for a kernel. So I think this is a great thing.
I think we are a bit close to release, and I would prefer to aggregate a few change in one bump on the message spec.
Okay, so Matthias would prefer to hold this for after 4.0. Is that right?
Are there other message spec things we're thinking about?
No, not currently. Oh, yeah, actually there are. Go ahead.
So,
Brian, okay, Fred.
Will is going to be working this summer to improve our tab completion, both the message spec side of that as well as the user interface, based on what the work he's done with Hydrogen. And I think part of that would definitely be updates to the tab completion part of the message spec. My hope would be to do that in a way that we could still support the old style.
Yeah, well, it's completely unacceptable for it to be a backward incompatible thing. Like, there's no way we're going to do that in on that time frame. But we can add. It's fine to add things.
Okay.
And there's also just really no reason that it wouldn't be compatible.
Yeah, right.
Perfect sense.
And I think we already did some things in the tab completion machinery to get extra metadata to improve. I guess you want to add the type of completion on the side like Atom does, right?
Yeah,
right.
Stuff like that.
I think we already have some fields for that. We're just not using them.
Interesting. Okay. I'll take that out.
So, Min, what is your sense on bumping the message spec? Should we wait till after 4.0?
Yeah, I think it's a fine change. The points about the completion and stuff.
And there's the list of supported message types.
Yeah, we also checking version. I think it's probably going to make more sense, since even as we bump the message spec to add new capabilities, not all kernels are going to provide all messages. So it's probably going to make sense to add list of handlers for a kernel into kernel info reply. So I guess the question is, how do we want to do the message spec 5.1, knowing that we're going to do 5.2 soon after? I mean, these are small. It's a new message. I guess the question is the cost of doing these minor revisions low enough that doing one?
I just want to add one thing. Can you hear me or not?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Just wanted to add one thing regarding this message. To me, it's more of a bug correction than anything else, because so far for the widget persistence, they were trying to infer whether a com was open on whether we got a reply or not to request state. So anything that would be persistent to a page reload that uses com would need this message to work correctly. And so I discovered this when I tried to, for the gamepad widget, which is kind of cool, you should try. When I tried reloading the page, the gamepad was recreating buttons, and it was recreating it and then getting the state from the state request that came earlier with the old buttons and access. And since this was done in the constructor, and the constructor was given a com that was in fact dead, it would never actually get a com if there is no such com on the other side.
And so, Sylvan, you're saying
it's not true to say it's just a bug fix, because it's a new message, so it is a change to the protocol. So that's.
But
I
think
the persistence cannot really work well for widgets that create new widgets from the front end. That's what I mean.
Okay.
So I think it's possible that it could both be a bug fix and a message spec change.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, yeah. So I think I'm still fine adding this message to the to 4.0. I think it's probably okay for us to, for now, try operating on the assumption that adding small new things to the message spec as a minor revision is not that big a deal, and kind of see how that goes. And if that doesn't go well, then we can reconsider it and try to bundle larger changes. Changes are, of course, a huge deal that we want to do at most every few years, but which is kind of how we've done so far. But I think.
And you don't think that this is going to start creating problems in kind of the matrix of kernels and front ends compatibility matrix, that is going to start turning into a very complicated checkerboard of reds and greens that people have to track manually, and that becomes a minefield? I mean, because that's kind of my only fear, right? That we start having this all kernels, all clients, all versions, right? And the tensor product of many kernels, many clients, many versions, there's a combinatorial explosion there that is frightening.
Yeah, I'm in terms of this particular change, I mean, maybe this is proving to be false, but I don't really expect this to happen that often. That I mean, I may be totally wrong about that since it is happening so far on every release. Every time we do something there. But the fact that this is widget related, and we fully expect for at least the foreseeable future, every widget release we expect to be just completely broken, with completely incompatible with the previous one. Like, obviously, we don't want that to be the case, but it is
potential.
And the fact that it's widget specific, right? And we do need to make sure that the COM reconstruction doesn't expect this reply to ever come. Like it has to handle the fact that this message will not be replied to, because we do require supporting. So I think one thing is we do require supporting the 5.0 message spec. I mean, we require working as much as is reasonable without this message being defined and available.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it is a question of front end should aim to support simultaneously all 5.x releases of the message spec.
Yeah.
Now, they might not get all capabilities, but it shouldn't be broken.
Right. So I think, given that this only affects widgets, I think it's probably okay.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Do you
my
expect
sense.
to see other use cases to come than the widgets?
No. I mean, there are a couple cases that are kind of custom widgets that don't use our widget classes, that are kind of custom UI that use comms directly.
So in that case, would also make sense for them to have persistence and get the COM list in any case.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they work today, they work right now, and we adding this should not break them.
Correct.
So we just need to make sure that we don't have a promise in instantiating the COM manager that makes nothing happen until this reply is received. Like, we need to make sure we don't do that.
Oh, by the way, it's more for the next version of it. In the widget manager, I added a promise for that COM, and I was thinking, oh, this promise API should probably be in COM itself, or wherever on the main, IPython core. Jupyter core repository that is Jupyter Notebook, meaning that for any message that triggers a reply, for any request with reply pattern, we should probably have a promise API rather than just what we have currently. Is everyone?
Yeah, we can think about that in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah, this has already happened to some degree, but we can learn things in the less stable, more experimental widget APIs, and as we learn things, then we can upstream more stable conclusions to the notebook stuff. I think that's reasonable. That's kind of the way things are already going.
So one question we can discuss on the issue itself: why a list of all available COM and not asking if a COM exists and getting a Boolean response? Because I can imagine that the number of COMs that can be open can be really huge, and you don't want basically the kernel to just on everything. You will say, hey, does this one exist? Because that's basically what you are doing when looking for whether or not you get a reply, right?
Well, because you really only want to ask this one time.
Yeah.
It's a lot more expensive to ask 100 questions. So if there are 100 COMs on the kernel, the odds are you're probably asking for 100 COMs on the front end, or on that order.
Yeah.
So you
and also the cost of returning extra comms that you're not interested in is just really low.
Sure, I'm just trying to understand what the other consequences can be, like many front ends connected to the same kernels and that don't want other kernels to see their comms. You can just send a list of comms you want to know whether or not they exist and get a reply yes or no. You know, I just don't want us to implement this API now and get a change for 5.2, which we cannot do. But
I think that is, that's a good point. That putting this in 5.1 means we're committing to this is the only way we're going to do it.
Yep.
That we're not going to add another way to ask, even if we decide this is the wrong thing to do. We're committing to this is the way we're going to do it for at least a couple of years.
Regarding the ASCOM API that you were proposing, this is the idea that I wanted to implement at first, and I realized that the only situation where you would request a COM list is on page reload. So when you generally to loop over all the comments that you want to reopen in the front end, and so it's better to have only one request. Regarding the other concern that you had on not willing to share the list of COM with other clients, I don't really see how that would be possible since the COM are part of the kernel. So if you share the kernel, then you should share the COMs as well. I mean, it's...
I would take, for example, the meta kernel of doc_blank, which is able to blend many kernels together. It might perfectly have COMs in many subkernels and redirecting in weird ways that you don't want to share. I mean, obviously, I see your point. I completely agree. I'm just trying to dig into what other kernels, other language, other people might want to do with that and how they would use it and how they, I don't know. Just trying to find what can be used differently.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think
I would be really happy for that to be merged early in 5.x and get 6 months feedback on this API works. Now the Julia kernel support it. Whereas if we do that now, we will basically do a feature freeze immediately, and kernel's author won't adapt, won't give feedback. So we don't really, we commit to something we haven't tested. Yeah, of course, yeah, we have tested it in Python, but it has not reached. We know for a fact that, for example, the Julia people are still not 4.01 message spec. They're still using the adapters. They're already not giving feedback on the new completion machinery and everything. So with 2 weeks of testing for other people in the wild, we won't get any feedback.
I think in general that's a good idea, but I would say that in this case, we've already spent the last year trying out the current message spec and finding that it doesn't work in this case. And I think this is a pretty obvious solution to it. And I don't know. I feel like we've already gone through the process you're describing, is I guess what I would say. And I agree that for this type of thing, there's the potential to push something too early, too fast. But I think in this case, it's a pretty clear API, and I don't.
For some people, testing that I is lower than max int in a language to prevent buffer overflow is the obvious thing. For me too, it's the obvious thing. I'm just worried about my own ability to judge it.
Yeah, I could Jason is bringing up a valid point on Gitter, that there might be a more general, I just reloaded, what is your state message that might include things in addition to, like, these are my active comms. There's more just a general query kernel state request that could cover this and possibly more things. And basically asking that question makes me feel that maybe we should. Jason asking that question makes me feel that maybe we shouldn't do this just yet.
Yeah, at this point I feel like 4.0 should be pretty much feature freeze to the point that, like, I don't think we should be adding new changes to the message spec for at the moment.
Except that without that message, right?
Say what?
Except that without that message, the widgets essentially doesn't work for widgets that stream data to the backend or that create widgets from the front end. It's buggy without the message.
Yeah. No, I think that is important. That there are bugs that exist without this. That I think is.
But
for me, it pulls it.
Is not an implementation detail. Like we can't just say there's a bug where we're changing the message spec. You know, that I think the message spec is the primary thing that we need to freeze, not kind of like a detail that we can freeze later on.
Sorry, Thomas, I didn't hear what you said.
Not sure that I did either, to be honest.
Can you try to turn off your video a bit?
So, yeah, I was saying that the message spec is not an implementation detail. Like we can't just make exceptions to the message spec freeze. Like that's kind of the most important thing to freeze. That's the layer that we're absolutely trying to solidify so that different pieces can talk to each other. You know, we can't just declare that because there's a problem we have to rev the message spec, and that trumps feature freeze.
Unless you are in a development version, and during a development cycle you can decide that you're on message spec and iterate on it. But
yeah, so when you're not in freeze, yeah. But I'm saying I think we should consider everything as frozen as possible at the moment. And to my mind, that the problem you're talking about does not warrant revving the message spec at this point.
Min was saying on Gitter. Wow, I have terrible echo. Oh, it's coming from bids. Okay. Min was saying on Gitter to Jason that Jason's question had convinced him that this shouldn't go in for 4.0 precisely. And I am feeling also quite uncomfortable with making changes to the message spec, especially when we're trying 4.0 to be as minimal changing in terms of feature of a release as possible, precisely because we hacked up the repos so badly, and because we're trying to have it be a minimally disruptive release, precisely so that we can get the project back to production operations quickly, right? We don't want 4.0 to be a release that takes forever to adapt in terms of the code base. So the question is, if we don't do this, how bad is the impact, right? If we don't do this.
One of the consequences of not doing this is kind of coordinated releases. That if making this change requires a release of the protocol implementation. Well, it doesn't actually. That's really only used for testing. But so Sylvan's PR is really 3 PRs on 3 projects. Or sorry, 1 PR each on 3 projects. And if say widgets, I guess they don't really need. So the way it's put together, and maybe we could rework how it's written a little bit. But spec changes like this, I think even additions often are going to require coordinated releases, which is one of the things that we're trying to avoid. I think in this case, that's not actually true. That's just widgets would require the latest and greatest. If kernel, which makes perfect sense, it would just require writing the test for it. And so then thanks for writing the test for it. It would just require writing the test for it in a slightly less convenient way.
I've written the test for it.
Didn't you write a test for it in the kernel? I think you did. Spec test?
I think I did.
Yeah, and that the test depends on the change in the client API, right?
That's right.
But you could have written the test just by sending the message directly without relying on the change in the client API.
I haven't looked at it. So maybe.
That's one of the things where we're going to have to work to avoid doing coordinated releases by adding a feature in multiple places, but not relying on that feature actually being defined in each other. It's going to be tricky, but I think we can do it.
Just a quick remark regarding the other proposals that were made for that message. So Matthias proposed to have a has-trait message, or has-com, to check whether the backend knows about the SOMCOM. And I haven't met that use case since I'm reloading everything at once. So I don't. Everything that tend to have their own state and not be part of the document state. So, and each one of them has a request state function on the JavaScript side, which already fills that contract. So, I'm not sure we would need a kernel state message, a general kernel state message, unless you want to communicate variable values and things like this to the front end. But I think this is very unlikely.
So one of the things that goes into this question of kernel state is a variable inspector and gets a list of variables that are currently defined in the namespace, which I think we have John that did the proof of concept with that with the widget, and Will that have that in hydrogen with a watch expression. I'm not sure how it works.
Isn't it already part of the inspect message? Something that could be done with inspect message?
You can in Python do an inspect message probably and ask user NS, but is this cross language? I'm not sure. So I definitely see the use of keeping this list, and I would also have done a list. I'm just gut feeling tell me that in 6 weeks you will say, oh my gosh, I should have never written a list. I should have written a dict, which actually is like com list, and com list is a list of coms. Or basically,
which is precisely what I did, by the way. It's actually that. a dict with a camlet, so I could add
Okay,
some of the
so coming back, maybe we want to have other keys that are, I don't know, I just think that we actually need to have it in production, in development version for a certain amount of time to be confident that that's how we want to use and there is no feature we want to add. So as soon as we add it and release, like the message spec is like completely, we froze what we can do with that for a few years, and what will happen is what happened with SGS 5, where basically they add a field too quickly, and then they realize that they want something else, so they add another field which has almost exactly the same name, but instead of a dash, it's an underscore, and people start to use the two, and then you cannot get rid of the old one.
Yeah, I think maybe let's hold this and merge it immediately on 5.0 and keep thinking about it and see how that goes.
Yeah, Sylvan, I feel terrible right now because on the one hand, obviously, if this is causing you real-world problems right now, we don't want to hold you back. On the other hand, I am terribly, terribly worried that indeed immediately we're going to want something else, right? And pushing a fix. Hello, Bryan.
Hi.
The joys of Google+.
Yeah, I'll be doing an intense therapy session followed by a massage and a meditation session to get over this.
so that you do not smash your computer.
Oh I love my computer. It's this.
No, I know, but I don't want your computer to be the collateral damage victim of your rage towards Google+, which is because you can't punch Google+.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, Sylvan, I really want to be sympathetic to the fact that we want to fix real problems that you're having right now, but at the same time, the more we look at this problem, I think the more we're finding that we could be rushing to judgment and find ourselves. And the thing is, every time we've been impatient, we've regretted it. This project has learned the hard way that every time we've made a decision driven by impatience, we've regretted it. And so we've tried to force ourselves over the years to learn, you know what, it's not worth being impatient because we always make the wrong decision when we're impatient. And so we really want to understand how much trouble are we going to cause for you. And Jason is basically saying the same thing. It would be okay if we hold off and we push it in just the day after 4.0. Could you live with that if we do that?
We'll survive.
Yeah, because what ends up happening is typically in the long run we just end up with better solutions. We just end up with a better solution in the long run.
Yeah, it seems like a straightforward problem for 4.0.
Could you repeat? You're cutting off a lot. Maybe cut your video.
No one can. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, much better. Yes, much better.
So I was saying that it seemed like a straightforward change to me. So I wasn't, thinking that would be a problem that it was touching the message protocol. But if you have reservations and think that is going to impact everyone for years, then okay, then we should probably wait. Although, yeah, I don't really see how differently it could be done. So.
No, it does look like a straightforward change, and when I look at it, it seems sensible. But I can quickly see. I mean, Jason has brought up other ways to think about it. I can see us actually finding quickly, oh, wait a minute, this is exactly how we should solve 3 related problems in one swath by changing this data structure from a list to a dict with keys, and we're solving 3 related problems in one clean swoop, and instead of adding 3 data structures with the same name and 1, 2, and 3 appended to the names or something like that. And it's just backing out of that ugly situation. It's not that on its face your solution looks very sensible. None of us is saying otherwise.
Okay, is there a place for experimental things in the message protocol?
You can write that.
What happened to Matthias's audio? Good God.
Matthias, full on Dalek mode there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Matthias, I don't know. You jumped into your Dalek suit.
You can make an IPEP for that.
Yeah, we don't have. I guess we could add, like, browsers have a prefix for experimental stuff. Do we want to do that?
We can investigate that for 5.0.
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable thing to
That's not
what
Sylvan is asking. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not already done, so I think to avoid this exact problem in the future, we should probably consider a way to do that.
Yeah.
But I don't think we can come up with a way to do that for 4.0.
Right now.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah. Sorry, Sylvan.
We're trying to get better at letting you merge things.
Yeah. For the record, I'm probably slightly in favor of moving forward with this, but I do understand that patience is, in general, a good approach.
All right.
Yeah, I'm actually, honestly, Sylvan, I think I would otherwise merge it. I think my gut instinct would say to merge this one. I am actually playing devil's advocate in this case and trying to say I'm playing the old wise guy here in the sense of saying the project has taught me that patience has been good. It's I suspect in this case, in 3 months we're going to learn, oh, Sylvan was right all along and we should have done it the way you said so. And then I will be very happy to just buy you a beer and say, yes, Sylvan, you were right all along.
Yeah, the thing is, I don't really know how to move forward without that. So
you don't have any workaround at all?
Yeah. What did you say?
You do not have any workaround whatsoever.
I don't see one because in the case where the COM is invalid and you send a request state, you actually never get a response. That's all. There is something printed in the logs of IPython on the back end.
Timeout? Add the timeout, and if it timeouts after 3 seconds, decide that the COM would not be there, and fake the API for the time being. And I mean, anyway, you will have to get widgets compatible with IPython earlier version, so you can fake this API, and when we bump message spec to 5.1, you actually do the request.
I thought that you guys were going to coordinate the releases of all the 4.0 packages, right? So meaning that we can have widgets 4.0 rely on changes on other repos for now.
Sure, but I'm sure people will try to use widget 4.0 with IPython 3.x.
But yeah, no, I think it's totally fine for the IPyWidgets package to absolutely not support
Okay.
the
Sure.
IPython 3. I think that's fine.
Do we want to add an experimental prefix to certain messages? Something like,
I thought opening a new COM should result. I mean,
something like
the
that.
workaround for this.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry. Actually, I was thinking like comms can send arbitrary messages. So can you just like open have a COM that you define on the kernel side, a COM target, you can implement this message over a COM essentially as an experimental thing.
I think COM messages essentially are the expansion to the message spec, right? You can send whatever custom COM message you want to whatever object you want on the other side. So one way to do it would be to create a special investigate COM target message.
I think Thomas and Jason were saying effectively the exact same thing.
Right. I think so.
Yeah.
So actually, this is what I proposed originally, and Min was saying that we should have a shell message rather than that.
I agree. I agree.
So maybe that's the workaround. Is we implement this as a COM message for now, and then keep the COM list PR open. We'll land that for 5.0, and then the workaround is doing it with basically an API call that's not a message spec change.
So what is the COM target to that message on the backend?
Good question.
Some special thing in the widget Python code. The IPython widget manager.
Yeah. Sounds like a much more complicated change than the current PR actually.
Yeah, no, I think it is more complicated. It's just it's working. It doesn't require a change in the message spec because COM targets are not part of the message spec, so you can add any COM target you want, and it doesn't require changes to the message spec. So that is the experiment. Yeah, and that's essentially. Yeah, that's the gist of these things. Is that the workaround is usually more complicated than the right fix, and I think COM list is the right fix. It's just we're not prepared to ship that in 4.0. So
I mean, we've had discussions for years now about custom messages, and I think the conclusion in the end is that COM messages effectively are custom messages in the message spec.
The one problem they don't solve is asking what COMs are there.
Well, and the one problem they really don't solve is they're not reply requests. They're just fire and forget.
Yes, that's true. And that's something that we can consider. Maybe adding a place for. Right. So one of the main reason that they're fire and forget is because one of the design principles was that they're symmetrical. And we simply can't have request reply going the other direction.
Bryan, IPython.
Yeah. But that doesn't mean we can't have a place for custom request reply. But also, I mean, if you make a COM target and you know that it's going to respond to the message you send it, you can make a request reply thing.
Just like you can implement on top of IP or something like that, on top of UDP or something.
I didn't hear that properly.
Can you repeat?
Can you say that again?
Oh, I mean, it's like implementing TCP/IP on top of UDP or something. I mean, right? You can do that, but you're making your complexity go up, obviously.
Yeah, and if it is really proving that custom request reply is something that we need, we can add that. I mean, it's a bigger change that will have kind of a longer gratification process. But
I think all discussions are post 4.0 discussions.
Yeah.
With the changing the message spec and custom messages and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so can we give Sylvan and Jason a path, even if it's a slightly ugly path forward for 4.0, and unlock this path right after 4.0 with merging this post 4.0? What would be the path forward before 4.0? Would it be a custom message inside of an existing COM?
Yeah, we could do something like that, just an always-on com with a special name rather than a UID name, for instance.
I mean, you can create a com from the front end, can't you? So
yeah,
create a com with com target, like list coms. That can send back the list of comms that are present.
Yeah, basically from the front end, open a new com of this category, com query, and send a request, get the reply, and then close it right away.
If you're talking about making changes on com code that are going into 4.0, you're effectively adding that to the message. If you're talking about opening up a new custom object that's, say, included in the widget code, or maybe the widget manager registers that target, then you're effectively adding that to the widget com spec.
Yes, that's what we're talking about, adding it to the widget stuff. And the widget stuff is not part of the public stable doc that all provide and that we, right? Because the important thing about the widgets and the important thing about separating the widgets is that widgets can do, one of the reasons that widgets is this standalone project that's kind of a leaf node on the dependency things is that the widgets really can and are going to, because they already are doing this, make these more significant changes that kind of only affect itself. Right? We have committed to a message spec for kernels for execution and display, and we haven't done that for the message spec for how widgets work. Right?
Although the comms is something that's used so far, as far as I know, so the comms message is not. In any case, even Matplotlib will need the comless message if they want to be persistent. So they.
I mean, this is basically breaking persistence, right? And
yeah.
The question is how much will people notice persistence breaking?
It was broken before. It was completely broken in 3.1.
There are other persistence that are broken. Like, for example, if you start running a cell in a notebook, you reload your notebook and your results come while the notebook is reloaded, you won't get this result. So even if we fix that, we won't have full persistence. And right now, if we do the com things with special name, we basically change something in IPython. I mean, widgets are still hardcoded in the IPython kernel. We would prefer for them not to be, but I mean, it's a fact of life. We haven't totally separated the two. So it's much better, I think, to break IPython, I mean, make a fake separation and have still things hardcoded in the Python kernel and not in the message spec, so that we can bump things later.
What is hardcoded in the IPython kernel for
John did something, has PRs that are hardcode things here, or I don't remember.
Oh,
it just circumvents the need for packaging.
Okay.
So to me, they are really separate. Yeah.
This one's getting. This one's getting. This one turned out to be a bear.
Like every widget discussions.
Well, no, this stuff is hard. Let's try to come to a resolution because we have a few more. We have a few more discussion.
Yeah.
We have a few more topics that we have to get through on the agenda. So
can we try to make a recap on a written document and maybe spawn an unusual meeting on, I don't know, some day before next week to try to resolve that?
On this,
we have the basic shape of a resolution here, which is that it can, the way to do an experimental message without putting it in the message spec is to do it over COM messages.
Yeah,
I think that's technically possible, and it is obviously more complicated than doing it the right way, but I think that seems like the best compromise to go forwards on this.
Yeah. Jason, you're asking for the ETA for 4.0 and yes, I think the idea of making hard freeze dates public is a very good idea. We should indeed publicize those better. Yes, that Jason is asking on Gitter for us to be a little bit more disciplined by actually making explicit when do we consider feature freeze dates.
So on the bug tracker of IPython 5.5.0 is due 30th of June.
Well, no. What we should do is actually start putting a release calendar up. Now that we're coordinating with a larger team, those things become much more important. I think we're beginning to see, and this is part of the conversation that we're having to grow into, is that as our organization scales from a few people who are in constant and regular conversation to a larger, more distributed team, having an explicit calendar, having more explicit mechanisms becomes more important. And communicating that calendar very publicly, basically having it posted on the wiki and having it posted on the mailing list becomes very important.
Yeah, and
yes.
I think one part of that is that part of the point of the split is that those calendars should basically be one of those per repo.
Yeah.
And they should not be, as much as possible, not be related to each other.
Mm-hmm. So, actually, as Thomas was saying, that is the next point on the agenda, so let's get to it. Thomas, have at it.
Thank you. So yes, update on the 4.0 release status. Traitlets 4.0 is now out. The next node on the tree is Jupyter Core. I would like to aim to have that released by the end of the week, though I haven't really looked into how realistic that is yet. Following that will be Jupyter Client and ND Format at the next level on the tree. So yeah, please focus on Jupyter Core, work out what it is that we need to do before release. I know Min has some stuff with the migration. I saw a PR. And yeah, hopefully we can get that out by the end of this week, and then maybe the next layer of the stack out the following week, hopefully.
Yeah, I don't. There's a little bit of migration stuff that basically after. So I just opened a PR that I've been working on last week for doing migration, basically triggering migration when you start a Jupyter application, so that things get migrated automatically. I don't think there's really anything else to do on Jupyter Core other than figure that out and fill out docs, basically. I don't think there's anything else that I know of. Obviously, we'll find more, but so I think if I weren't leaving this afternoon, I think getting it out. But other people can finish it up. But I think that's reasonable, and ND Format is probably ready to go as soon as Core is out. Probably the same is true. I don't think there's a big reason for the same not to be true of Client. But I think we can probably get Core out this week and Client and ND Format next week. I think that's reasonable.
Excellent. All right, the next thing is, Fernando, this was your thing from yesterday. Interact. and
Yeah,
the return value from the function. Do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, it's an odd API question. As I was writing some tutorial materials for the UK course, I realized that interact has an odd behavior. It doesn't display the return value of the function it calls. Can anyone remember why we made that decision? Basically, if the function that is being called by interact has to basically make a print call or a display call, but it doesn't actually display the return value of the function. It holds it in the if you use interactive, it holds it in the value of the widget object, but it doesn't actually display it, which leads to very weird to extremely weird interactive functions. And I don't understand why we're doing that. Can anyone remember why we made that decision? Or was it just an accident, one of those things that it ended up being that way for no particularly good reason, and we can revisit it? Because if it's the former, if there's a good reason for it, we can think about it. If it's the latter, then I think we should I strongly think we should revisit it.
Yeah,
Bryan?
I just muted him at the time he was starting to talk because of the noise of the microphone. So he's probably talking in a muted microphone.
Can you unmute it?
No, only the person who is talking can unmute himself.
I'm here.
Bryan, can you? Yes, sorry. Can you unmute yourself? Sorry,
Yeah,
Matthias muted you by accident.
Yeah, so I'm unmuted now. I ran into the same problem when I was teaching this quarter, Fernando.
Yeah.
And I don't see why we wouldn't just display the return value of the function.
Okay, so you feel the same that I do.
Yeah, unless I have completely forgotten the subtle reason why we didn't do it, other than to say that we should not display return value as none.
Okay, yeah. So I can't imagine why. It must have been an oversight. We'll look into it. Okay, I just wanted to know.
Let's try to change the behavior, see if tests fail, and if there is a test that catches that, we might have a response. And after, if no test fail, we can rediscuss that.
Okay, we'll investigate. At least nobody remembers a good reason to defend what we did.
No, I think it's a good. That would be a good change. And part of the problem is the whole quarter. I kept telling the students, your functions have to return something, not just print it.
Yeah.
But then they come to interact, and oh no, sorry.
Yeah, you have to put print and display statements everywhere inside the functions, and then shove a return statement afterwards. But oh, by the way, put a print statement right before the return value.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's really weird. Okay.
Yep.
Got it. Perfect. Never mind. That's all I wanted to know. In case anybody remembered, we had a good reason to do what we did. We'll investigate. Good. Okay. That's all. Good. Thank you. Front-end packaging.
Yeah, I wanted to update everyone on some conversations I had last week with Will and Kyle, and also some when John was in person at Cal Poly the week before, and that is talking about packaging and repo split up for our front-end code. And I think the picture of these discussions is that we would get a huge benefit from doing another level of repo splitting after 4.0, namely having the Jupyter Notebook repo be Python server-side only, and then split the JavaScript stuff into dozens of small repos that do just one thing. And this would allow people to start to reuse our JavaScript code in a much simpler manner. And it would also, I feel like one lesson I got from the discussion with Will is that when you embrace repo splitting and packages, the more the better, in the sense that it forces you to deal with that at scale in a proper way, rather than sort of crippling by with infrastructure that doesn't really scale, but sort of does.
I've been mostly pushing for that for a long time, and
I'm not sure
after how the big split is going so far, I must feel the exact opposite.
And
you're not watching, Brian. You're not watching Gator, I think, because I believe you're using your phone. You just gave Jason Gratt a heart attack.
No, and part of the lesson here is looking at how Adam does this.
I'm hearing about one syllable every 5 words from Brian.
Yeah, man, we really need to find some. We can't hear anything you're saying, Brian. Jesus
Had to
Christ.
solve.
Yeah, we need to find some other way.
Can you just read my mind? Hello?
I've switched everyone to audio only.
Hello, testing.
Yeah, okay, that's better again. Good, you're back.
Hello.
Yeah, Jason says, I do think that splitting off the front end JavaScript HTML repo is a good idea. I'm doing right now with my Phosphor repo.
I think packaging the JavaScript, I think doing the JavaScript.
No, Brian, we can't understand a word you're saying. Oh, and Sylvan muted you, Brian. Brian, can you unmute yourself?
Oh, Brian left. Min was talking though, and I couldn't hear it over Brian. What were you saying?
Min, what were you saying?
Just that it. I mean, we did the split that we have along the lines of what we call stable APIs. And there are none of those lines in there aren't any of those lines to draw in the notebook repo.
Hey, Brian.
I think Brian was meaning different packages, not different repos. So that's
no, he specifically said dozens of repos.
Yeah.
I think releasing the JavaScript so that it can be I think grabbing the JavaScript with Bower is totally sensible. I think making it possible to get the JavaScript on its own, and Kyle and I have kind of already done some of that with the CD and stuff, but making the existing notebook repo like a Bower package is quite sensible.
Yeah.
I think we're just nowhere near the stability. If we made it multiple repos, so ostensibly we've done the big split with multiple repos so that the current packages can evolve on their own, that they're not tightly coupled to each other. And that's just simply not the case for the notebook stuff. The JavaScript APIs are tightly coupled to the Python stuff, and that's expected to continue for a while.
And there's also kind of, I've just put this in GitHub, but I feel we've been very, very inward focused on stuff that affects us as developers, like code, repo structure and TypeScript versus JavaScript and things. And there's stuff that we've been talking about for probably years at this point, like selecting more than one cell at a time, that we really want to get around to implementing that will actually improve stuff for users. And I think the more time we spend trying to reorganize things, the slower we get to that stuff.
Yeah, I do think that's a valid point. We don't want to lose sight of that lest we become a Python 3 project. Sort of. it's important that we need to mind our own house in as much as things in our own house are hampering our own ability to work, because obviously we need to be effective in, if our own setup is impeding our ability to be effective, then we need to fix that so that we can be more effective.
And I would say, I mean, that's the core issue here, and that is, I mean, a perfect example of this is that Matthias has been unable to work.
Yes.
On anything, because it's all one big monolithic blob of JavaScript that's all tightly coupled. And I agree that today our JavaScript is tightly coupled, but this is why having separate projects and repos is a good idea, because you can't write bad software that's tightly coupled any longer. Like and so I should say we really should blame Kyle for this. He's the one that's been corrupting my mind in our conversations. No, it's unfair to blame Kyle. He's not here, and we've been joking about
I actually am here, Brian.
He is here.
You are, okay. No, but part of this is the seeing how the Atom packaging system works, and realizing that their embracing of lots of small, loosely coupled things has forced them to solve packaging for real. And I think we would get a huge benefit from embracing that and actually solving packaging in a way that.
So anyway, that's not a discussion that we should have now, because it's close to release. It's something that we can investigate when we have students to work on that. And
no, I'm not leaving.
But I just wanted people to know about it, and also know that even currently, in various corners of the project, we're starting to create lots of small JavaScript repos. My students are doing this. Folks at Continuum, working with Chris Colbert, are doing this. And so I felt like I was having a lot of offline conversations, and there was excitement building, but I wanted people to know about this.
So please, looping by, just don't bring that all at once in one meeting. It's much better to get asynchronous description of what was said.
Yeah. No,
I mean, especially since I'm back, that's one of the next points. Since I'm back in France, I feel again the fact of working with 9-hour difference with the rest of the team, and I feel completely cut out. And I again understand how people who are on the internet trying to follow what we are doing are feeling, and it's horrible to so hang out and catching up with things on video and on chat is like something we should avoid as much as possible.
Yeah.
And this kind of discussion need a thread, need something where people write clearly what they think, what the pros and cons are, and have the online discussion, real-time chat, either on Gitter or on Hangout at the last resort when things get in a dead state where people don't comment on it or things linger around. But not, hey, I have like these 100 things I need to catch up with you and tell you.
No, my plan is to put together a post to the Jupyter mailing list about this, but I will not be able to do that justice on a time frame that's convenient for everyone, and so I at least wanted to mention it, but I will follow up with the mailing list.
There are plenty of things like that, like the fact that you can just pip install Find Spark and get Spark working on the notebook without a custom kernel. Or even we should make a blog post about the fact that Atom has hydrogen. And yeah, we need to hire someone to do that.
Yeah, well, we are supposed to be hiring someone for web work and someone for technical writing, and one of the roles of a project manager is to do a little bit of communications and messaging.
Yes, and Google Hangout has a much thinner audience than saying the same thing on the mailing list.
Yes.
Yep.
No, I know.
But it's also it's a quicker back and forth. Although yeah. One of the things I wanted to say was that if this stuff doesn't get broken up over time, like Will is going to end up re-implementing it for hydrogen, and some of it already has been, like in terms of the node kernels. Some of the core building blocks are already there. And so it's just like if it seems like we could make a separate package to do some things that the notebook could later rely on, instead of thinking about it like a split, think about it in terms of like, if I just want this functionality, could I make this as a package? Then like just make that as a package separately and TypeScript it independently. Like instead of trying to shoehorn it into the notebook repo.
Sure. And that's why I want to get rid of jQuery and IPython main global namespace that everything requires, so that you can just shove one thing away. And I had strong pushback on doing that.
Well, my thinking on this is evolving very quickly.
Brian, we know that next week you will be the opposite mind and you will disagree with yourself. So it's fine. You can change your mind.
Thank you for allowing that.
Okay, it's getting late. We've been going for an hour and a half, so let's try to be quick on the remaining items. Front-end dev organization, who had put that on the agenda?
I did. I just want to mention the fact that the number of people starting to do front-end work is exploding very quickly, and I think we need to start to, honestly, just what Matthias was saying, have more conversations on the Jupyter mailing list, because Jason and Sylvan are working on things, Continuum is working on things, my students are working on things, and no one knows what anyone's doing right now.
I mean, I don't even knew that Continuum was working on things.
No, exactly. I didn't until like a few days ago.
Yeah.
And so
and honestly, the only way to do that is to have some amount of coordination on the mailing list. Even though mailing lists are a little bit slower by their nature, but it's the only way for everyone to know what's going on.
Yeah. So please, let's obviously use Gitter as we need, but we need to start to have more of the project on the mailing lists.
Yes.
Or on repos that people are all subscribed to and participating in. But
periodically pinging, like mentioning, basically referring back to the mailing list, sort of every now and then pinging people on the mailing list and saying, by the way, this thread is happening over here. Little summaries that kind of ping back on the mailing list. In that regard, I've been having conversations recently with people. When I look at how Python Dev operates, Python Dev, they're actually in that regard pretty good about working their long issues on the mailing list, and they have the bug tracker, and they work on specific issues on the bug tracker, and they comment on the issues on their tracker. They don't use GitHub, but they have their own. But they do sort of the long discussion on the mailing list. And that has value because it does mean that everybody can basically know what's going on with the big problems by reading the threads on the mailing list. And I know it's hard for all of us. I know we hate email. I'm the first one who hates email with a fucking passion. But we are going to have to force ourselves. We're at the point where if we don't do a little bit more of referring back to the mailing list, we're going to die by death by Gitter and death by Google Hangouts.
So are people still okay with removing every link to Gitter from the main website? Because right now Gitter is the first thing, like you want help, come on Gitter. That's the first things we say on the website.
I think we had said we wanted to strongly demote it and probably say for occasional real-time help or something like that, there's an option. But
so being in New York, Gitter was essentially the only communication that worked for us.
How am I going to get it right?
What's that, Sylvan?
I was saying that Gitter was essentially the only communication channel that worked for us, besides the comments in the pull request.
So event comments on pull requests are better than Gitter, especially if when you are like, when I wake up in the morning here, I literally have 9 pages of Gitter in many topic rooms to read, which I don't. So I discovered that things happened like 10 days after.
So Sylvan, the challenge basically is Gitter is great for the real-time discussion when you're in the middle of a conversation, but Gitter makes it impossible to catch up later. So the trick is how to balance the two.
I agree with that. It's just that the Hangout is already not working so well for us, and I'm not sure I'm on the Jupyter mailing list. Or, I mean, so generally, there is one thing that worked for us. It didn't work perfectly, but it kind of worked. So I would disagree with like, removing it completely if we don't have like a better solution.
So no, we're not. I mean, we're not going to get rid of Gitter. No, we're not getting rid of it because obviously, when we need to hop on and have a discussion, it'll be there for us. One thing is de-emphasizing its role for help. It's trying to have a discipline of having some longer conversations on the mailing list so that we can refer. I mean, basically, Gitter. A conversation on Gitter from more than a few hours ago is effectively gone.
So yeah, basically, if you look at some things like maybe Jupyter Hub, I mean, a few times I look at Jupyter Hub or something like that, is how do I set up this with remote kernels? How do I set up this with remote kernels? How do I set up this with remote kernel every day? And every day you have to re-say the same things. And that's just waste of time both for us and for users. And it's also force you to be always there. What we think we should do is when you have a conversation, you start like we did for your question on lists not checkpoint com IDs. Start an issue, discuss on the issue or on the mailing list. Explain the pros and cons, discuss with people, and if you really need to have a live conversation with someone to solve something quickly where mails don't work anymore, then you go onto a Hangout or Gitter. We won't get rid of that. The only problem right now is that when you go on the IPython website, on the sidebar, if you need help, come on Gitter.
Yeah. So for us, Sylvan, where we already know when we need to have a conversation, Gitter is fine because we're already there. We know. It's more about not pushing new users onto Gitter as the first thing.
Okay, for help, I would agree regarding the help.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about.
Also, one other point is, I think I'm wondering if we want to go down to a smaller number of Gitter rooms, like one for Jupyter and one for IPython.
Yeah, we were also talking. Well, and I think Min had said that there's a couple of repos that have a lot of activity that they might want to keep because they have a ton of repo-specific discussion, but certainly not the gajillion we have.
Then I propose that we create a mailing list post about what Gitter channels we keep and how we use those Gitter channels.
That seems reasonable.
Yeah.
We have the slight difficulty with Gitter that, as far as we can see, I haven't really checked in the new interface, but there doesn't seem to be a way to delete a room.
Yes.
The best we can do is like leave it and kick everyone out of it, and like hope that
we can probably ping Gitter staff and ask them to remove the room.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, they seem to be somewhat immortal. Okay, let's try to wrap up. I need to head over to campus. Hey, can anyone try to find? Does anyone know of an alternative to Hangouts? This is driving everybody nuts. Do we know? Is there an alternative to this piece of junk?
Bloomberg has something, apparently.
Appear.in.
No.
That didn't work well.
That didn't work very well. Is Skype any better?
Skype doesn't have live broadcast.
Oh, so I actually at work we use something called Vidyo, VIDYO, with a thick client. We've had it support like 32 simultaneous users with no problems, distributed across continents.
Can you type that in the chat? I didn't hear what it was.
Yeah, can you put the link?
I'll post it in chat.
And I think somebody said that there is an option to broadcast meetings from Blue Jeans.
Yeah, I mean the Berkeley Blue Jeans thing is super nice.
What the public status, like if we want to have a meeting and share it with the internet.
I don't know. Yeah, but that I don't know. I don't know if there's a way to like record and post it on YouTube afterwards.
Let's see what.
Okay, let's try to investigate some alternative to Hangouts. This is driving everybody crazy. I mean, Bryan keeps getting booted off. Damian keeps getting booted off. It eats everybody's battery. It's horrible.
Well, not just battery use, it also sets afire my desk.
Yeah, totally.
All right, do we have anything else? I have to head into campus.
That's it for me.
And the extensions by kernel. I thought this was part of the messaging of the front-end packaging.
I'm sorry.
Is it currently if you have two kernels installed and you install in the extension one in both, one will override the other one?
So we had a discussion about that, and we say that at some point we will have a per kernel JavaScript folder, like kernel/something, and we will load the JavaScript through that. We haven't done that yet.
Are you subscribed to the? There's a GitHub issue where we were talking about that too.
I've muted many repos. Like I'm not subscribed to Traitlets anymore. I'm not subscribed to Widgets anymore. I'm not subscribed to a lot of stuff anymore.
Yeah, I'll ping you guys on that.
Yeah, we did. I mean, at the dev meeting a long time ago, we did decide that we were going to do that for 4.0.
Okay, then that issue, if that was put on the 4.0 roadmap, then can we
bump it to 5.0?
Is that viable? Is that viable 4.0 material? I didn't know about that, but if we had put it a long time ago.
Yeah, I mean, it was a major topic of discussion that we talked about for several hours at the last dev meeting.
Yeah.
We decided, I mean, the implementation of what we had decided upon was, I think, very simple. It was just serving a folder in the kernel spec directory, just like we serve NV extensions globally.
Yep.
I definitely think we should wait on that stuff. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
One other comment about the Google Hangout thing is that I think it's important that we broadcast, but I think it's much more important that we can have conversations.
Yeah. At all.
And I would gladly give up the broadcasting to simply have a good connection with everyone who needs to participate.
That it'd work at all.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, no, that'd work at all. No, we need to find out. And most of these things that have video conferencing can record. So if they can't broadcast live, at least you can record, and then you can dump the video on YouTube after the fact, because you can always upload the video after the fact. So if we can't broadcast live during the meeting, at least we can broadcast it after the fact, which is not as good, but fine. So let's find out if we can have some other solution. No, we don't really. It doesn't have to be video. We rarely screen share. It could be audio only. That's true.
Blue Jeans does have a recording thing that you can. It says with the basic thing you can get MP4s. There's an add-on. I don't know if Bids already pays for that add-on, where you can have like online playback as well. But if you just get the MP4s, we can put them on.
So audio only can be annoying from time to time because you don't see when people want to talk. But if we can deal with that.
It's true, and I mean, it is true that sometimes we do want to look at code and we want to look at demos, and sometimes people are sharing their screen. So having the option of looking at sharing desktops is good. I mean, today we never did. Sometimes we do that. So it is useful to have desktop sharing.
Shall we experiment with using BlueJeans for next week?
Yeah, maybe we can give it a try, see how it goes.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
does BlueJeans have a phone-in option?
Yeah. Yeah, okay. It has a regular telephone number.
That could.
Okay, so let's wrap up. This doesn't need to be on air.
Yeah. No, BlueJeans definitely is not on air, but it does have a phone-in option, and we can try to record it.
I mean, this conversation is probably we can deal with detail later. We're still broadcasting live.
Okay.